Hello and welcome to another Smaulgld live stream, and welcome to Smaulgld in case you missed it. Top gold, silver, crypto, and other top stories of the week for the weekend of November 18th, 2018. We're going to do this one live tonight. I would suggest if you're listening to this live, if you'd like to, you can go back and tomorrow morning or later tonight, I will have up the links and the pictures and you can follow along. Most of you listen actually on an iPhone and you wouldn't see the presentation very well anyway. So you can see this at your leisure at smaulgld.com. If there's any stories or clips you want to replay, you can go back and easily find them by scrolling through the blog post, which would be entitled First Crypto ETF, ETP, to be launched on Swiss exchange next week. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight, plus a host of other stories that happened during the week. But first, let's take a look at our markets. Gold and silver in the aftermarkets have opened, and they're basically about as flat as you can be. Silver down 3 cents, 14.36. Gold down 90 cents at 12.22. Crypto markets are also relatively flat here. What is going on here? Okay. Cryptocurrencies are also relatively flat. Bitcoin at 5,524. That's up 0.45% over the past 24 hours. Bitcoin Cash down another 6.11%. It's basically been almost cut in half since it spiked on the idea that somehow this fork was going to be a good thing. It's now down to 325. It was at 625 just a week ago. Ethereum up 1% at 174. And Litecoin at 41.66, down 0.69%. And Ethereum Classic is 738, and it's pretty much flat. So let's get to the week in review. Uh-oh, we got a moron here.
Presenting the distinguished international news commentator and foreign correspondent,
Smaulgld. This has been an extraordinary week in world affairs.
No, I told Hillary Clinton that that's moronic. That is moronic. With the 1% got all the wealth.
All right, let's take a look at the top gold and silver and crypto and other stories of the week. So here are the headlines that we're looking at. First, crypto ETP. That's an exchange-traded product to be launched on the Swiss stock exchange next week. Switzerland's sixth stock exchange, that's the name of it, is set to launch a multi-crypto exchange-traded product. Republicans take governor and Senate seats in Florida. Those results will be certified early next week. And the Democrats take the Senate seat in Arizona. The Republican Kemp ousted or beat Stacey Abrams in Georgia. That is also now a final count. And there was a mug brawl in Florida. We're going to cover that. Just as a reminder to use your Smaulgld mugs responsibly. Indeed, the woman in the story did use it as self-defense, but what happened was it broke. We're going to get into the details of that story a little later on in the program. Foreign Policy magazine is promoting the concept of end of dollar hegemony and China dumping treasuries. We're going to see the irony in that story. And then, is Brexit collapsing under Theresa May? We're going to cover what's going on to the extent we can figure out what's going on with Brexit. And Trump gets aggressive with Roberto Mueller. He prepares his written responses to the collusion questions. And he's getting a little feisty, so we'll see what happens there. And then Democrats question the validity of acting Attorney General Whitaker's appointment and want recusal. And gold and silver are pretty much plodding along in wake of all of these stories. So far, we're not seeing a big direction yet. Let's take a look now at what we got. So during the week, as you know, we do a live stream each and every night. I haven't missed a night. I think I did miss a night one night. But during the week, for those of you who are interested, we did a former JP Morgan trader pled guilty to manipulation, and the reason that's an important story, you might want to go back and listen to that one, was he pled guilty to manipulation, not to price suppression. There's a big difference. Not going to go into it right now, but go back and check that one out. We covered the big market meltdown earlier in the week in the stock market. We also covered if you win, you win. If you lose, you still win. The concept sometimes that people ex post facto take with regards to their failing investments. They figure, oh, Well, if I win and the price went up, that's great. But since the price went down, I can buy cheaper. And they keep that mentality for years. And they keep buying on the way down. We're not talking about, well, maybe we are talking about some silver investors. Then there was another story called Crypto Meltdown. We had a meltdown in cryptos of about 15-20% at one point earlier in the week. And then we covered the story why Venezuela can't get its gold back. And then last night, or 2 nights ago, we discussed the different changes in the silver demand, the biggest one being the difference in the prices or the demand for investment-grade silver. The industrial demand and the silverware and jewelry demand have remained relatively constant throughout the last 4 years, but it's really been the demand for rounds, coins, and bars that has gone down. And the story we had last night was shocking silver left off the final list of U.S. strategic metals, and we discussed the reasons why the U.S. Department of Interior did not include silver. And if you don't have the time to go back and watch that one, that was essentially because I believe that the United States thinks that it has enough in its own annual silver mining production. There's a lot of silver in the country in forms of stockpiles at the COMEX, people's individual hands. That'd be a last resort, I would imagine. And also, not just the annual silver mining production that we have in the United States, but if they had to mine more at a loss for national reasons, or national security reasons, I'm sure they can go and perhaps produce more silver than they're producing at the moment. Because right now, remember, the price is low, so it does put a hamper on production of silver. All right, let's see what else we got in the gold and silver before we get to the story. So gold closed last week, as we mentioned, at $12.21. It's about at that price right now. That's up from $12.09 a week ago. Not much of a change. Silver, same thing. It's at $14.39. It closed the week. It's at $14.36 now. And it was at $14.15 a week ago. But your gold-silver ratio is still around 86-1. So not really a much of a decrease in that. And, you know, there's the old story. It's unsustainable. It's been unsustainable for 10 years now. It's supposed to go to 16-1, 9-1, 1-1. But, yeah, I got some comments. People complaining that I'm being paid to trash silver. They just don't understand that not saying something positive about silver is not the same as trashing it. But again, it does highlight when people watch these channels that are telling them constantly that silver is the most precious metal on earth and it's destined to skyrocket, and the market just doesn't understand how important it is. And when it does, it's going to, you know, all those stories. All I point out is that a little bit of reality, that's not really the case. Not that I don't like silver, but of course, if you don't say silver set to skyrocket, COMEX default, gold back yuan, JP Morgan has 800 million ounces, all those stories, if you basically say they're either not true or they really have no relevance to the price, then people get upset. And they think you're saying something negative about silver, missing the point. I'm not saying anything negative about silver. I'm saying something negative about the quality of analysis and or pumping that I hear across the alternative media precious metals channels. So I do, for the record, like gold. I like silver. That's the purpose of the website. That's the purpose of the broadcast, is to educate myself and others about gold and silver, not to pump and hype 24/7 and do these alert shocks the world, silver set to skyrocket, or whatever, with pyramids upside down and debt Ponzi schemes, the whole story. I'm fully aware of the debt. I'm fully aware of a lot of the information that's out there. It all doesn't lead to gold and silver set to skyrocket. All right, what else do we got before we get into our top stories? All right, well, we might as well get into this mug story. So as you know, in reasons to buy and hoard small gold mugs, the last reason I've listed is you can defend yourself with a mug. And indeed, that's what happened in Florida. So earlier in the week, there was a story out. Florida moms get into bloody brawl at school bus stop. Broken coffee mugs were used as weapons, as weapons, says the police. Well, these two women, they somehow got involved in a brawl, and police are investigating the case. and both of them ended up in the hospital. But thankfully, one of the women, who was not the aggressor, was attacked and physically confronted by a woman, and she defended herself with her mug and clocked her with the mug and hit her assailant in the head and neck, cutting her. But during this little altercation, the mug sadly was broken, and that gave the assailant the opportunity to rebound from her clocking in the head and pick up a piece of the shattered mug and go after her. And she tried to slice the other woman, and she did manage to slice her. Now, both women apparently went to the hospital and they're recovering, but the woman who got clocked in the head, the assailant, she is in jail in Sarasota County right now, and she has trauma. She is trauma alerted and taken away, and so that does show that the mug you can defend yourself with a mug. Now, these are the ceramic mugs, I'm sure, because they broke. And if you want something that's less, it's not going to break, it's the Smaulgld travel mug. That is a metal mug. You may dent it in self-defense, but it will not shatter and make shards and possibly ending up in the hand of someone who's attacking you. And again, these mugs are not sold on the basis of either offensive or defensive weapons. Check the local law in your area about whether you can indeed open carry mugs, and please only use the mugs for their intended purpose, that is to have your favorite beverage in them, either hot or cold. And by the way, I do have a new coffee affiliate. You want to check them out, Blackout Coffee. They are veteran supported, and they sell a wide range of coffee, so you can check them out. Anything I sell on the site, obviously I try to make a small profit on the mugs I ship out. Sometimes I don't make anything after the shipping, but generally, full disclosure, I might make $1 or $2 on anything I sell or anything that comes through. So full disclosure from a mug pumper. All right, what else happened besides the big mug brawl at the bus station? Well, some of you may have heard that Emmanuel Macron decided to weigh in on the English language and on geopolitics and patriotism and nationalism. And he said, patriotism is the exact opposite of nationalism, which that doesn't make a stitch of sense to me. He even wrote it out. And here's what he wrote. Yes, when he says a word, it means nothing more, nothing less than what he means it to be. Sounds like Alice in Wonderland there. Here's what he said. Patriotism is the exact opposite of nationalism. Nationalism is a betrayal of patriotism. By putting our own interests first, with no regard for others, we erase the very thing that a nation holds dearest. And that thing that keeps it alive, its moral values. So Inspector Clouseau, Emmanuel Macron, says that patriotism is the exact opposite of nationalism. I don't know if he stood on his head when he said that. I'm not sure, but they've really done a number now on language, because nationalism, there's many nationalists that weren't racist. Lincoln was a nationalist, or maybe Lincoln was a racist. You should hear some of the things he said about, quote, the races being able to live together. But the idea of nationalism was born in the 19th century. It was the idea that the Italian people could live under one country instead of a variety of city-states. It was actually considered a good thing because it stopped the city-states from fighting. After all, siamo italiani. We're all Italian, and we shouldn't be bothering that we're Viennese, Firenze. We're all from all these different parts of Italy. No, we're all Italian, and Garibaldi put them all into one country, and Bismarck did the same with the German city-states. And Lincoln actually wanted Garibaldi to be a general in the U.S. Army. Think about what Lincoln was doing. He wanted to make sure that the United States stayed as one union. Couldn't have the South trotting off and being a different country. Nope. All those states, they were united. They weren't a confederacy of states. They were to be a union. That's what nationalism is, for better or for worse. It's got nothing to do with racism or white nationalism. It has to do with the idea that peoples can belong to a country instead of these small amounts. Now, actually back then, nationalism was globalism. It was before they have globalism. Now what they've done is they rounded up all the states into Europe. all the nationalist states. And that's why nationalism is a threat now, because people, they want them to think of themselves as part of the EU, not as part of Italy or Germany or France or wherever. And eventually they want people to think that they are global citizens, not necessarily from the EU. But that is what Emmanuel Macron had to say. And I think his monkey has broken the law. If you remember that from Inspector Clouseau. All right, what else do we got for the week? Well, let's see what happened after Macron spoke. By the way, they're still buying back shares as the market goes down. Now, it used to mean that share buybacks were that the company felt that the shares were undervalued. Well, now they're using them to boost the share price when they're overvalued and they can't maintain the stock price. So what's happening now with share buybacks is companies got a high PE and it looks like the stock price is topping out. So they buy more shares. Very, very, very strange. That used to be illegal. That's like manipulation of the market. I think they allowed that to go on in the early 80s because they can't have stock prices going down. No way, no how. Emmanuel Macron. All right. What else do we have? I want to thank Awake or Sheep. Wrote me a nice tweet publicly. Had good fun in the chat tonight, and I'm sure that your channel will grow rapidly as you continue to broadcast your unique, unbiased, balanced, reasoned, and much-needed perspective in the community. 2 beers, he put there. Well, thank you very much for everybody who does join me every night. Well, this one was funny. Yahoo announced a new paid subscription offering for investors, and that tweet got 4 likes. I wrote, good luck with that. Smaulgld might sell more mugs than Yahoo sells subscriptions. And Smaulgld got 12 likes from that. So I guess I might end up selling more mugs than Yahoo. All right, what else we got? Okay, now at the caravan, the border, there's still a lot of stuff going on there. That is a fluid situation. Some of the migrants showed up at the border. Some of them got in. And then immediately, I've got a picture on the website. A few hours after they were trying to climb, they then put barbed wire at the top of the fence and barbed wire at the bottom of the fence. And Donald Trump called the site, quote, beautiful, I believe is what he said. Now, here's one. We might as well get into this now. It's going to go on in 2020. It looks like the Democrats got a lot of candidates running for president. And what I've seen, and this is a Smaulgld original insight, is that whenever you have a contentious primary, meaning you either have 2 candidates battling it out, or you just got a ton of them battling out, and you don't get a clear, decisive winner, the other party generally wins. So I'll give you an example. In 1976, Reagan and Ford battled it out right down to the wire, and Jimmy Carter won. If it wasn't for Ronald Reagan battling Ford, Ford probably would have taken it, but a lot of people probably sat. Reagan supporters might have sat it out. 1980, Carter versus Reagan. Ted Kennedy ran to the very end against Carter. Carter was the president, and Kennedy showed him no respect, and he even gave his only good speech in his life at the convention saying the dream will never die, and basically everybody was cheering and whooping it up for him. And by the time Carter accepted the nomination, the party was uninspired with him, and Reagan beat him in 1980. Same thing in 84, although Reagan would have won anyway, but you had Gary Hart and Mondale battling out with Jesse Jackson. Mondale just slipped in as the nominee, not a lot of support behind him. Same thing in 88. You had Dukakis, Jackson, and Gore all battling it out. That led for George Herbert Walker to win. And then in 92, Bush was the president. He lost. Why? Because Buchanan challenged him, and then Ross Perot. Is this how we're gonna play the game? He came in and he took away a large chunk, and that did in Bush. So you can see what happens when you have these challengers. And I'd imagine if you have in the Democrat side already, you got Avenatti, Shadwell, whatever his name is, Booker, Cory Booker, Kamala Harris, Pocahontas, Biden, Sanders, Clinton, all pretty much announcing that they're going to run. They're kind of going to split the vote, and it might be, quote, acrimonious, and they may not say nice things about each other. Now, Trump may have his own challenge from his own party. Maybe someone like Flake would run, but I don't think that would be serious. Don't put it past Mittens Romney to try to run again, but I don't think you're going to get the same type of challenge to Trump, if at all, that you're going to get. The Democrats are going to have a real trouble rallying around one particular candidate. But speaking of those candidates, Senator Kamala Harris. Now, this is the extent where they've gone. They've made ICE out to be more than just the boogeyman. They made ICE out to be KKK. And the new acting attorney general was having he was interviewed with Kamala Harris. Let's have a listen to how she handled it and how he handled it.
So I want to return to the question that Senator Peters asked you about the statement you made describing the Democratic Party as liberal-cratic or neo-Klanist, which was, I think the assumption there was that you were comparing it to the Ku Klux Klan, the KKK. So you said in response to his question, you're sorry because the words caused offense. So would you not be sorry if no one was offended by your words?
No, it was wrong to do.
Why was it wrong?
Because those are offensive words.
Why are they offensive?
Because they have history in this country, and I honestly did not mean it that way.
But please talk about the history. What is the history that would then make those words wrong?
Well, the Klan was what we would call today a domestic terrorist group.
Why? Why would we call them domestic terrorist group?
Because they tried to use fear and force to change political environment.
And what was the motivation for the use of fear and force?
It was based on race and ethnicity.
Right. Are you aware of the perception of many about how the power and the discretion at ICE is being used to enforce the laws? And do you see any parallels?
I do not see any parallels between
I'm talking about perception.
Officers and agents.
I'm talking about perception.
I do not see a parallel between what is constitutionally mandated as it relates to enforcing the law.
Are you aware that there's a perception?
I see no...
All right, that's enough. You're aware there's a perception. Where did that perception come from? From her. And so she's asking him whether he's aware of a perception and what's he going to do about it. Now, he's being polite to her. I would tell him, well, you're misguided, and then shut her down, but she's insisting that there's a perception that she's created and that somehow the answer is, I mean, he's just said, she's baited him into saying, what do we do with the KKK? We shut them down. They're a domestic terror group, and now she's trying to say, and you see? And ICE, they're a domestic terror group, aren't they? So maybe we should shut them down. Very disingenuous, but here she is, finishing off.
Are you aware that there's a
that
perception?
Puts ICE in the same category.
Okay, I can't listen to it. Are you aware there's a perception? All right, let's see, what else? So you can see she's going to run, Spartacus is going to run, Cory Booker, Avenatti says he wants to run. All right, let's move on to Mr. Acosta, Mr. James Acosta. Now, he was tossed out of a press conference with the president after he asked a couple of questions, and the president said, that's enough. Okay, we're going to take another question, and he persisted. He had to get his next question in. And Trump said, no, that's enough. The intern came over to take the mic from him. There was a little tussle there. Big debate over whether he touched her, didn't touch her. The video clearly shows, not that he struck her, that he moved his arm to prevent the mic from being taken, but he did indeed touch her. And for that, they suspended him. Now, interestingly enough, what happened was Fox News, all the media joined in. This is a threat against the First Amendment. No, it's not. You don't have a First Amendment right as an individual to attend a press conference. I mean, I can't go. I would go if they invited me, but I can't sue for lack of having Smaulgld. My First Amendment rights aren't, my press rights aren't infringed upon because I'm not invited to the White House. And that's how they try to make it sound, that somehow he's infringing on the press. These are the same people who have no trouble shutting down individuals or other websites for their freedom of the press. And a lot of people agree with this. They really want to protect the press. It's really, they don't want to protect the press. They want people that are going to yell and scream at Trump because they don't like him but other people that are in the press, they want shut down. So it's kind of a disingenuous argument. But in any event, what happened during the week was one of these district court, D.C. district court, at the trial level, federal court said, no, you can't do that. We're going to issue a temporary restraining order, not a temporary injunction against removing him. You got to put him back. The injunction lasts 14 days. But get this, no one has read the injunction because they didn't publish it, and they're going to publish it within 90 days. But from what I read and what I heard and how Trump reacted to it was, what should have been there in the first place is they have to let him back. He doesn't have to call on him, and they're going to put in place rules. And I think it should be obvious when it's not your turn and you're told, thanks for your question, let's move on. You have to move on. And then I would imagine if you don't move on and you continue to cause a ruckus, I see no reason why they couldn't remove you. But we'll see what happens there. But that was Jim Acosta. Now, this was funny. Take a listen to this. Anyone who has an Alexa, I don't, would never get one. But someone asked, Alexa, who is Jim Acosta?
Who is Jim Acosta?
I believe James Acosta is an American fake journalist who is currently the chief White House correspondent for CNN.
He's a fake journalist from CNN, according to Alexa. All right. What else do we got? That's enough on Jim Acosta. We need to move on. Well, PayPal's at it again. PayPal suspended BitChutes. They're starting to suspend a lot. They suspended some Antifa groups. They suspended Alex Jones. They've suspended a lot of people now on terms of service usage. And this does highlight, again, as Roaring Fork mentioned, while using PayPal is voluntary, if it is one of the main ways you can transact, it is problematic if they boot you off the system. And that's what we talked about the other night about Venezuela not getting their gold back. You know, when someone has possession of your stuff, you need permission from them to get it back. And if PayPal is your payment processor, you're relying on them to process your payments. But with Bitcoin or Litecoin or these other cryptocurrencies, you don't need permission and no one can shut you down. All right, but that's what's happening on social media. Now this is funny. This is Donald Trump earlier today. Now for those of you who have children in the room, remove them because I'm going to use a semi-expletive. This is Donald Trump on Twitter. So funny to see little Adam SCHITT. So it reads, so funny to see little Adam shit talking about the fact that Acting Attorney General Matt Whitaker was not approved by the Senate, but not mentioning the fact that Bob Mueller, who was highly conflicted, was not approved by the Senate. Now you can forget anything he wrote after that because it is pretty much gibberish because you're talking about two different things, but that's not the point. The point is he called Adam Schiff purposely. It's not like the T's and the F are that close that he might have made that mistake. He wanted to call him Adam Shit. So Trump was shit posting earlier today, and that's part and parcel of his very aggressive stance that he's now taking against not all Democrats, but Democrats that are going to go after him. Remember, Adam Schiff, it's going to be very hard now not to say Adam Shit, is in charge now. I think it's the Foreign Intelligence Committee, and he's been the one who's been going off on Trump saying he's colluded with the Russians. He wants to subpoena him, he wants his tax returns, all this kind of stuff. He wants to help Mueller in any way he can. So you could see Trump going after him. And you know where Trump is going to go with that is there are many instances where Adam Schiff would leave one of these Foreign Intelligence Committee meetings confidentially, and then 10 minutes later, the news is on CNN what's happening in the meeting. So they may investigate him for leaking from the bathroom. Not leaking in the bathroom, but leaking from the bathroom. All right, what else do we got that's going on? All right, so we know that the Arizona Senator, in the senatorial campaign, the Democrat Siema won over McSally, which was a little odd because the governor, who was a Republican, won by 325,000 votes, And McSally lost by 35,000. Now, I put a poll out and I said, why do you think this is? And I asked, was it because McSally was a bad candidate? Or that Siema was a great candidate? Or that the governor was awesome? Or that there was voter fraud? And of course, 74% said there was voter fraud, 13% said the governor was awesome, only 3% thought the Democratic candidate was awesome, and that's why she won. And only 10% thought that McSally was a poor candidate. But I think that they don't understand the politics of Arizona. In Arizona, McSally used to be a never Trumper. And she also was one of these who tried to play, I'm not for Trump, but I'm a Republican. She was kind of a McCain flake Republican. I would imagine that some Republicans walked into the voting booth, voted for the Republican governor, and didn't give her the time of day, or maybe even in spite voted for Siema. Now, Trump did go to Arizona on her behalf once, but he had actually supported, I think it was Kelly Ward in the primaries. So it's interesting, all of the candidates that Trump supported for Senate and, and all the other places where he went, they won, but where he didn't go, obviously the Democrats picked up 35, 36, 37 seats. Now, it was announced earlier today and yesterday that the Florida races and the Georgia races are now officially over. Rick Scott has defeated Bill Nelson. Rick Scott is a Republican for Senate, and he used to be the governor of Florida. He won, and what's his name? DeSantis beat Gillum also for the governor. So DeSantis will replace Scott as governor, and Scott will go to the Senate. And then also, Stacey Abrams lost to Brian Kemp. And let's listen to what she had to say in her, I guess what you call a concession speech, which I wouldn't call this a concession speech.
I acknowledge that former Secretary of State Brian Kemp will be certified as the victor in the 2018 gubernatorial election. But to watch an elected official who claims to represent the people in the state baldly pin his hopes for election on the suppression of the people's democratic right to vote has been truly appalling. So let's be clear. This is not a speech of concession. Because concession means to acknowledge an action is right, true, or proper. As a woman of conscience and faith, I cannot concede that. But
all right, well, here you go, another one with the making up their own definitions. When you concede to something, you basically acknowledge that it happened. Doesn't mean that it's right, doesn't mean you agree with it, but that's what she added to it. And basically, she lost. So saying that she didn't concede, she did concede. So I don't know what she was talking about. I know what she's talking about, but it doesn't make sense in terms of the word concession. She said, I understand that they're gonna certify it, but I'm not gonna concede. You really can't do anything but concede. You can concede under protest. I guess that's what she was doing. But it's very interesting now that we used to hear that if you even thought there was voter fraud or voter suppression and you were going to raise that, then you were not respecting our democracy and you had to accept the election. Yeah, when you expect that you're going to win, you tell the other side you better respect the results. And when you lose, you say, I'm not respecting the results. I lost. I'm not conceding. I'm going to change the definition of the word concede. So you see this really needs to be fixed. I mean, I didn't follow the Georgia closely. She may have all types of legitimate gripes. I have no idea. The Florida one I followed a little more closely. There seems to have been clearly some issues in Broward County with not counting the votes, taking in late votes, changing votes, re-examining ballots, looking at them later, finding them. A whole bunch of stuff that shouldn't happen that does undermine the integrity of the election. So I think at least now both Democrats and Republicans, they should agree that there's a problem with this system instead of trying to blame each other and saying it doesn't exist or only the other one cheats. That's nonsense. Whenever you got people involved and you don't have strict controls on who can vote, when they can vote, and then strict rules on how to count the ballots, you're going to have this problem. All right. Well, I forgot to. So here's what Trump has to say about the Jim Acosta ruling.
A federal judge who you appointed has just ruled that you must give CNN reporter Jim Acosta his press pass back. Your reaction to the ruling?
It's fine. I mean, it's not a big deal. What they said, though, is that we have to create rules and regulations for conduct, et cetera, et cetera. We're doing that. We're going to write them up right now. It's not a big deal. And if he misbehaves, we'll throw him out, or we'll stop the news conference.
What are your rules going to be? What is it that you're saying?
They're doing them now.
This is over the line, and you lose your
they're
press
doing
back.
them now. I mean, we'll have rules of decorum. You know, you can't keep asking questions. We had a lot of reporters in that room, many reporters in that room, and they were unable to ask questions because this guy gets up and starts, you know, doing what he's supposed to be doing for him and for CNN, and, you know, just shouting out questions. And making statements, too. But I will say this, look, nobody believes in the First Amendment more than I do.
No, he believes in it more than anyone that ever existed in the entire world, and no one exaggerates more than Donald Trump. But he's making the point that if he does act up and they have the rules, he breaks the rules, he's out of there. You're fired. Let's see, I think we're done with the elections. Bill Nelson conceded today. Now, election 2020 is coming up. Bloomberg looks like he's running for president, or at least his news agency seems to take whatever chance they can to take a swipe at Trump. Listen to this. This is tweeted. By the time Donald Trump flew home, this is from France, or from whatever he was talking to Macron, he appeared isolated and by some scorned. And then Politico says, poll, Trump has little support for re-election bid. Okay. Bloomberg, how chaotic is the White House at the moment? There are 3 cabinet vacancies without a nominee, which is perfectly normal. Trump has now burned through 3 national security advisors, 2 chiefs of staff, and 2 staff secretaries. And there could be new indictments from Mueller. Now, this is all just designed to try to make it look like everything is crumbling around Trump. And, of course, Bloomberg, I forgot to mention, in addition to Avenatti, Shadwell, Spartacus, Kamala Harris, Pocahontas, Biden, Sanders, and Clinton, Mr. Bloomberg wants to run for Presidente as well. Now, on the Republican side, you can't forget about Governor John Kasich. Now, speaking of Avenatti, he had a rough week. He was accused of... Now, he's saying he wasn't accused of it, but he was arrested. It was something to do with hitting a woman. He says he didn't do it. He would never hit a woman. And then his law firm gets tossed out of its... he's had a lot of issues, and he's very pugnacious. But that could help him, could hurt him. Doesn't help when you're accused of hitting a woman. It never helps when you're accused, but when you're taking the view that you're protecting women by representing those who are making accusations, it doesn't really look very good for you either, because you're accused of... You could be falsely accused, but also you're the one who's out there perhaps representing women who are making false accusations as well, and you're saying we have to believe them, but don't believe the one that says that I hit him. All right, now over to Brexit. Right, so Theresa May, what's she got to say? Theresa May, what have you got to say? Well, she comes out and she's got this ridiculous deal, which I haven't read, but apparently it's worse than just being in the EU. And she says, we've got 3 options. This deal, no Brexit at all. Now, where did that come from? Where did it come up with, we either have this deal or no Brexit at all? No, there's never no Brexit at all. That isn't part of the deal. She's right. If you don't sign up for a deal, at a certain point the clock runs out and there's no deal and you're gone. What they're trying to do is say, look, you stay under these terms, or we have another referendum until we get the vote that we want. Now, 17 of her PMs from her government have resigned, and the pound, or the cable as they call it, or sterling, has dropped as a result of all this. So we'll see what happens. Maybe she'll be replaced. Maybe they'll get in another Tory who will lead a orderly Brexit process. See, the thing is, the Labour Party there doesn't want it. Scotland doesn't want it. Now they're thinking maybe the EU can break up England, the United Kingdom, into its component parts and only have Britain and Wales, and then have Scotland separate and Ireland separate and Northern Ireland separate, and they'll all join the EU. Who knows what's going on there? But we'll have to follow it up next week. But headline from CNBC, gold prices hit 1-week high amid Brexit turmoil. So we need more turmoil. Something I've always talked about is turmoil is good for gold. And some people are thinking we need turmoil in the form of a war for gold, but that's taking it a bit too far. Donald Trump hasn't forgotten about the social media censoring. He hasn't mentioned PayPal yet. When he said this on the 15th, the only collusion is that of the Democrats with Russia and many others. Why didn't the FBI take the service from the DNC, he says. They still don't have it. Check out how biased, this is his words, Facebook, Google, and Twitter are in favor of the Democrats. That's the real collusion. So we'll see if the new Attorney General, maybe he won't, maybe they'll wait for not the acting Attorney General to bring any type of antitrust, collusion, racketeering, who knows what type of legal action they may be. Now, the Department of Justice issued a memo earlier in the week in saying that Whitaker's appointment as Attorney General is constitutional. Wouldn't expect that it wouldn't be, but of course, the Democrats are saying he's not Senate approved, but he'd probably be approved anyway because either now or in early January when the Democrats have a 53 to 47 majority, pretty much anyone Trump appoints as Attorney General will be approved. And then they were going on that he shouldn't be overseeing the Mueller investigation, that Rosenstein should continue to do so. Rosenstein is he shouldn't be there in the first place. He's a witness too and an actor in both the obstruction of justice and the Russian collusion investigation, in that with respect to the obstruction of justice, he actually wrote, the obstruction of justice would be that Trump fired Comey in order to stop the Russian investigation. Well, Rosenstein wrote a memo recommending to Donald Trump that Comey be fired. So it's kind of hard for him to oversee and get the results back from Mueller about whether Trump obstructed justice when, in a sense, Rosenstein helped him obstruct justice, if that's the road they want to go down, saying that the firing of Mueller was obstruction of justice. Well, Rosenstein helped in that. So he's conflicted there. And then on the Russian collusion story, he signed the fourth Pfizer warrant, which was the whole basis, or one of the bases, if not the main reason, why they thought they needed to investigate Trump on Russian collusion, which means Rosenstein read it, was aware of what was going on. So he was an actor, and he was an active participant in encouraging the surveillance of the Trump campaign. So I don't know how he's there in the first place, but I don't understand all these senators, Collins a Republican, Flake a Republican, all wanting to keep Rosenstein on the case. And then they don't even want to keep Rosenstein on the case, they want to make sure Mueller stays on the case. But Trump is being vociferous, not just pugnacious, in his disdain for the Mueller investigation. He says, the inner workings of the Mueller investigation are a total mess. They have found no collusion, have gone absolutely nuts. Nuts. They are screaming and shouting at people, horribly threatening them to come up with the answers they want. They are a disgrace to our nation. And he had to go through 3 tweets to write all this out, and don't care how many lives they ruin. They are angry people, uppercase, including the highly conflicted Bob Mueller, who worked for Obama for 8 years. They won't even look at all the bad acts and crimes on the other side. Then, all caps, a total witch hunt like no other in American history. Yes, more than the Salem witch trials, which were actual witch hunts. But Donald Trump, he has to exaggerate. Let me read that again. A total witch hunt like no other in American history. And then he says, to top it off, universities will someday study what highly conflicted, and not Senate-approved Bob Mueller and his gang of Democrat thugs have done to destroy people. Why is he protecting crooked Hillary, Comey, McCabe, Lisa Page, and her lover, Peter S., and all of his friends on the other side. Now that has got to piss off Robert Mueller. And I think the only reason Trump would do this, there's only two reasons. He's either toast or he knows he has the goods on all of them. And I would suspect it's because he has the goods on them, because he is lashing out and basically telling them to go pound sand, calling them thugs, calling them basically a disgrace. And we all know he has the ability to declassify documents. He either knows a lot of stuff and he's holding it in abeyance. He's doing the same thing with Adam Schiff, calling him Adam Shit. So either he's playing poker and he's bluffing and he knows he's toast and he's going down swinging, or he's got the goods and he's not putting it up with it anymore. Now, this is all this case of this George Papadopoulos. Big development. Joseph Massoud is tied directly to Christopher Steele and Alexander Downer's former chief of staff, who was also on Jamal Khashoggi's payroll. This guy, who is apparently a nobody, but he's not a nobody because he's the guy they tried to use to surveil and get him to go along with the Russian collusion story. He hasn't gotten indicted for anything, although he's got like 4 days of jail or something. But he appears to know a lot of stuff, and we'll see what happens with him. Now, Jeff Flake says that he won't vote to confirm judicial nominees unless GOP leaders hold a vote on legislation to protect Special Counsel Robert Mueller. Now, he's a Republican, and I don't know why anybody, other than someone who's totally against Trump, wants to protect the Special Counsel Robert Mueller from being fired. What exactly is he doing that's serving the nation, other than trying to get rid of him? And I guess that's what Flake wants, but he's not going to vote to confirm judicial nominees. He's a Republican. These aren't Trump's nominees. These are supposedly what he says he is, a conservative nominees. Then he should support them. This guy, he doesn't gain any support from the Democrats or the left from pulling this stunt, and he doesn't gain any support from the Republican. This is the classic rhino play, is where you pretend that you're conservative, but really you're not. And then you pretend that you can reach across the aisle, as John McCain used to say. And when it all comes down to it, they're not on your side either. And you lose. And you make, I think, a jerk of yourself. He did that with the... anyway, I'm not going to go into Jeff Flake. There he is. What does he say here? If it's more than a half a second, 40 seconds, we can...
One further note on this unanimous consent request.
This is Jeff Flake.
That has just failed today. Senator Coons and I are prepared to make it again and again until there is a vote on this vital bipartisan legislation on the Senate floor. And I haven't... By
the way, the only reason it's bipartisan, this trying to keep Mueller, is because he and Senator Collins and maybe a couple other Republicans want it.
Informed the majority leader that I will not vote to advance any of the 21 judicial nominees pending in the Judiciary Committee, or vote to confirm the 32 judges awaiting confirmation on the Senate floor until S-2644 is brought to the full Senate for a vote.
Now, the reason
Thank you, Mr. President.
The reason it's ridiculous is, first of all, Trump's not going to sign it, and he's just going to wait for Flake to be out, because Flake is out in December. So I don't know what... strategically, this is a stupid move. Makes no sense. They'll just wait till January. He's gone. The Republicans have 53 senators, and they'll put all the judicial nominees through. What point is he proving? He's joining up with bipartisan with Coombs, or whatever he's doing. All right. Well, you can't see this, but you want to go to the website later. There's a picture here of Romney showing up in Ryan's office, and he says an old friend dropped by to ask for directions to his new office. They're hugging each other, kissing each other, and then I have a picture of two rhinos, actual rhinos, doing the same thing. So you want to check that out on the Smaulgld site. Well, Zero Hedge reported, as I've been reporting now for almost 4 years, that U.S. oil production is surging and is now ahead of Russia, ahead of Saudi Arabia, and I've been calling this the new petrodollar, backed by U.S. and Saudi oil. Done a lot of work on that. And the dollar has been hegemoning higher all week against the game-changing Chinese yuan, which has been falling. Now, foreign policy, which is set up by the Carnegie Foundation, a globalist type of publication, They have these CFR, Council of Foreign Relations type publications. Well, now they're pushing end of dollar hegemony, and China is going to drop the dollar. It's interesting that when Obama was president, they never talked about this. It was only the gold pumpers. And now, ironically, the gold pumpers that pump this China nonsense, how China is going to crush the dollar and dump treasuries, and then it's going to be game over in gold. Foreign policy doesn't get into the gold part, but they're into this whole now, China is going to do this and China is going to do that, and the dollar is going to be toast, the dollar's days are numbered, and so on. So it's interesting to see how foreign policy now aligns with the gold bugs. Well, not the gold bugs, the gold pumpers. Now, Pence criticizes my Belt and Road. China and the United States trade fiery barbs in speech at Pacific Summit. So Pence is basically saying, no way, any of you guys, any of you countries that you want to join the Belt and Road, he's warning them, don't do it. Now here's something silly. Reuters says Pence vows to end tariffs until China bows. He never used the word bow. He didn't say China will bow to us, bow. He vowed for them to bow. Maybe he was just looking for a little rhyming there. But my Belt and Road. Now, here's what Vice President Pence did say to these Asian nation leaders in Japan. Do not accept foreign debt from China that could compromise your sovereignty, protect your interests, preserve your independence, and just like America, always put your country first. Meaning, don't take any Chinese money on my Belt and Road, or don't take the gold back yuan or any of that other Sun Tzu game-changing nonsense is basically what Pence is saying, my Belt and Road. And then Pence also says, we don't drown our partners in a sea of debt. So the United States is being aggressive in that region, and they probably will do some infrastructure projects on different terms. Now, here's an interesting one. Chinese artificial intelligence. Well, they now have the world's first AI news anchor. He's gone live in China. You go to the website to see it. And I'm sure they've taught him how to pitch Smaulgld Mugs by reporting on game-changing news and gold-backed yuans. And we'll see how that works out. You probably get a better social credit score from watching AI. Now, Pedro, Crypto Vortex says, looks like the Americans, not the Chinese, are currently using Sun Tzu. Now, that's a game changer. And he's referring to a September 11th, 2012 tweet from none other than private citizen Donald Trump. He wrote, there is no instance of a nation benefiting from prolonged warfare. Now, who do you think said that? Sun Tzu! So, Donald Trump is a fan of Sun Tzu as well. And he likes gold too, probably. Now, Ian Bremmer. Now, who is Ian Bremmer? He sounds famous. He put out a tweet of a bunch of empty, like 40 empty, he's famous somehow. He's got 400,000 visitors, followers. But he showed a picture of like 40 or 50 Chinese empty 50, 60-story buildings, and he said not a single person lives in any of these buildings. And that's the whole, but China has infrastructure. This perfectly illustrates having infrastructure and empty buildings that need costly maintenance when they produce no revenues and are funded by debt are an advantage in building a Ponzi scheme. It's like a Sun Tzu statement. One must have infrastructure and empty buildings, and you need to have costly maintenance, even if they produce no revenue, and they're funded by debt, because that's how you win a Ponzi scheme. But a lot of the gold pumpers, they believe that. Those empty monstrosities are not valuable assets. They're going to be deployed at a later date. They're liabilities, those empty buildings. They require debt payments and maintenance, and they produce zero revenue, and they're an eyesore, too. They're not, but no, they're a game changer. They're going to help China end dollar hegemony. China's going to crush the dollar. Yeah, China's expanding their budget deficit right now. I'm going to crush anything. Now, Kyle Bass is out there saying that we have to, well, he's expecting a short position to wind down. Let me take some comments now, and then I will finish off. We got to get to the Bitcoin and the crypto ETPs. It's a very big story, but listening to me for 50 minutes might be a bit much. So let's take some of your questions here. Well, not me. He said last evening he mentioned his beer mug had arrived broken. He contacted the store and requested a refund. They requested a picture, which I sent, and his refund was granted within an hour. So then he turned around, got his money back, and he ordered himself a super classic Smaulgld mug shipped by Smaulgld with the Velvet Glove shipping service, and I will ship his mug out tomorrow with a personal note. Priority shipping and insured as well. Now, Roaring Fork is worried about his Stein being in the mail. I'm sure it'll arrive just fine, and he likes that big 20-ounce plus mug. All right, let's see. Main Squeeze says, hello, gorgeous. Well, I guess it's time to buy more silver. Okay. Roaring Fork, I'm willing to bet Lewis has silver on hand, even if he isn't going to the moon, and we can live our lives without silver, or even if JP Morgan isn't buying silver, that is all he needs to know. All right. Max Strong, greeting. And Main Squeeze points out it's always Florida. That's right. Sarasota is the Detroit of Florida. I don't remember that. I haven't been there in 30 years probably. And Max Strong is saying that those women should have had, or at least the one who was using it as self-defense, the Smaulgld metal mug. That's right. That is the game-changing travel mug. Roaring Fork, Orange County. He's talking about California. Is changing its name to Blue County. That's right. Every congressional district now has basically flipped into blue in California. Macron is insufferable, says Max Strong. Macron now has 250,000 French upset at him, says Pablo Pina. I'm pretty sure Trump's approval rating is twice as high here as Macron's is in surrender stances, Roaring Fork. And that's true. I think he's got like a 20% approval rating. I think Le Pen, the far-right candidate, has a 30% approval rating, so she's doing better than he is. Macron got eggs thrown at him, says Mystery versus Mystery, at his head twice in 1 week. His approval ratings are in the excrementer. His days may be numbered. Mint mark French accent. Well done. Okay. I can't wait for the 25 candidate debate we'll have in Ames come Memorial Day, says Roaring Fork. Are you in Iowa? That would be interesting to see the... I think they called them the 8 dwarfs when Trump ran, like Snow White and the 7 dwarfs. I don't know how many there are, but they might have even more in the Democrats this year. Oprah, I heard, may run, or just a rumor. I think she said she isn't going to run, but if she runs, same thing. Pat Buchanan and Ross Perot, nationalism. That's right, Max Strong, and that was back in 19. Buchanan was a bit of a force in 88 and early 90s. Ron Paul ran too. That's right. He finished like 3rd or 4th. Seth Shepard is here. Max Strong, never say you're sorry. Joe Blow. Oh, I'll have to see what that video is. They don't show videos. Someone has the IQ of a pencil eraser. I don't know who we were talking about, but that's all right. And then she was referred to in a more opprobrious way. Okay. Game changer eraser. Costa. Okay. Roaring Fork. Every time the police take a gun from a drunk guy, the Second Amendment dies a little more, just like the First Amendment wanes when some gas can gets booted from a press corps. Journalist demoted to a troll, says Pablo Pina. Roaring Fork. I think Trump and Harris have the same grasp on the Constitution and general the rule of law. Yeah, you're at a point now where basically it's just outcome-based politics. It's just, I'm going to get what I want. With the Constitution, forget that. I'm just going to get what I want. And no one's thinking about how to do it, why to do it. I think the judges don't even think about the Constitution. I don't understand how a judge in the District of Columbia can say that Acosta should be reinstated. What does that have to do with the First Amendment? Anyway. McSally lost because of the contentious primary, says Roaring Fork. Yeah, there was like 3 or 4 people. Or Joe Arpaio ran too, in addition to Kelly Ward there in Arizona. Max Strong, demographics are destiny. Go kiss Oprah. Let's see. All Abrams had to do was shut her mouth about gun control like Sinema did, and she would have won easily. Well, that's possible. I don't know. I didn't follow the Georgia campaign. John Moore is here. Litecoin Johnny. What's up, everyone? I got here late but wanted to say I have paid with Litecoin, coming to a lot of business in the first month. You got to give Johnny a hand. Check him out. He's got all his videos up on Twitter. Look him up. He strides into merchants. He's got the gift of gab, and he understands. And he's talking about payments. Now, remember we talked about this, the permissionless, basically, of just individuals being able to transact without a third party or someone telling them they can or cannot have their money. But there's also some very interesting issues on the payment side, and that's Johnny's background. Make mobile mining great again. All right. Yep, PayPal messing with people makes Bitcoin and Litecoin more powerful as payment options. It clearly does. If you're going to send me money through PayPal and PayPal's going to take a cut, all right, that's the cost of doing business. But if I got to worry that I'm going to say something that PayPal doesn't like and they're going to cut me off, it's like, and I'm paying you, you're making money off of me until you decide you don't need my money anymore. That's what the banks do too. It's not a very good relationship. I can send money with PayPal without having to pay fees to Coinbase or any other exchange. No, but you see, Roaring Fork, if you had purchased Bitcoin or Litecoin, you can send it to me and pay like 2 or 3 cents mining fee. It's hardly anything at all. So when you, in a way, if you use a payment processor for Bitcoin or Litecoin like Coinbase, you run the same issues because now you have to. Coinbase can do the same thing that PayPal does to you, but when you can send money directly to people, peer to peer, that is frictionless and permissionless. That's the advantage. I'm aware that's why money launderers love Bitcoin so much. But when AML regs get slapped on crypto, which happened in June, we'll see what happens to those market caps. Yeah, you see what's going to happen though, Roaring Fork, is the bulk of Bitcoin and Litecoin trading will be done within AML compliant exchanges. Now I know that goes against the whole concept of what Bitcoin's supposed to be, but what governments do is they try to regulate as much of what they can, and by doing so, they bring 90-95% of the transactions under their purview, and then they go after the money launderers, the criminal activity, the tax evaders. What they don't do is try to go after all of it and not regulate. See, they can, and this is why I believe there's going to be a crypto bubble, is because Wall Street wants to bring all this in. I am fully aware of the hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars, if not billions, that have been spent to date setting up platforms, setting up regulated platforms, trying to get regulated ETFs launched. Money, I know at least 300 million has been invested in stable coins, which will be the keystone or cornerstone to a lot of these crypto exchanges. You're going to have Fidelity with an exchange. You're going to have Microsoft and the New York Stock Exchange backed with a regulated exchange. This idea, people are still living in 3 years ago. That's what I used to think. I used to write about this. The government's going to crack down. They're far from cracking down. As we're going to see in a minute, the Swiss just approved an ETP. It's totally regulated in Japan. The United States is working on its regulatory system. They want regulated ICOs because they don't want people buying and selling ICOs on YouTube channels based on flimsy white papers. So this whole thing is being moved. It's not going to get shut down. What's going to get shut down are illegal activities, but it's not going to be every crypto transaction is going to be illegal. No, it's going to be Fidelity, TD Ameritrade, Microsoft. They're all going to be running platforms that are fully compliant. And it'll be just like when you buy an Apple share, you'll buy a Bitcoin or Litecoin or an Ethereum, whatever you're going to buy. Mueller investigation says mate is bred in circuses. Yeah, John Moore says they already have AML laws on Bitcoin. When you buy, I'm a payment processor. I'm well aware what goes on with payments. PayPal and credit cards have tons of problems. That's right. Bitcoin has no AML regulatory, says Roaring Fork. Coinbase does, but Bitcoin does not. That's right. But Bitcoin isn't anything. Bitcoin's not a company. That's the permissionless part of Bitcoin, and that's why they want to. They know that it can go on its own, and that's why they want to bring it under the tent of regulated entities like Bitcoin, like Coinbase, like Bakkt, like TD Ameritrade, like Fidelity, like an ETF, and so on. All right. I'm going to drop this debate here. You guys, I'll read it later. All right. Pablo Pina. You guys did it maturely. No small gold mugs thrown at each other. Bitcoin is freedom, says John Moore. America should be about freedom. That's right. I agree with that. All right. That's like saying there shouldn't be any speed limits on the road, says Roaring Fork, because we're about freedom. Drive as fast as you want. The safety of others be damned. No, but that's there's always the limits. Just like the First Amendment is not. I actually wrote my law review article on this. None of your rights are absolute. Because if they're absolute, you trample on other people's rights. Your right to do something ends where it infringes on somebody else's right. So if your right to go 600 miles an hour down the road running over people, you don't have that right. Your freedom of speech is limited in certain circumstances. None of your rights are absolute. All right, but that's a much longer term discussion. All right, you guys are having a great conversation, but I'm not going to get into it now. Joel Thornton, damn, got here late again. At least I have time to give a like. Well, thank you very much. All right. Wow, there's a big argument going on here while I was talking. I should have just dropped the mic. All right, well, let's get now into the rest of the... Didn't realize you guys were having at it. All right, let's get into the rest of the crypto part and the gold part. But prominent short seller Kyle Bassett on Wednesday, China needs a reset. That's another one that's prominent. Everyone needs a reset. They're always predicting when there's going to be a reset. And it seems like Kyle Bass is the cheerleader for a Chinese reset. He takes the view, and I agree with him, that China is well over-leveraged. It's basically one big Ponzi scheme and that it can't last very long. But as we've seen with all these things, they can last a lot longer than people think they're going to last. And China's clearly confounded a lot of skeptics. All right. All right, now we're into cryptocurrencies, and then we're getting into the gold and silver. So, as I mentioned, this I'm looking at right here, is they're now saying corporate America's blockchain and Bitcoin fever is over. And that is a big mistake to think that. Because we saw the last time people thought, and I went through this. In 2011, 12, 13, I wrote about it, followed it, and it went up to $1,000 in 2013. And when it fell, I said, that's it, okay. I was right. This thing is stupid. It's a waste of time. You're just going back and forth. You're solving math problems to confirm stuff, but what do you get at the end? You get a Bitcoin. What's that? A bunch of numbers. Stupid. Okay, I was totally against it, and I thought, and now, 2014 and 15, it proved. It was gone. It was finished. It was done. No one was going to be interested in this anymore. Well, it came roaring back, and the reason it came roaring back was my opinion didn't matter. Other people, developers, investors, continue to pour money into this, believed in all this stuff. I don't really believe in it. If it was up to me, it wouldn't exist. But I am objective enough to know that when something like this has these types of investments, that Wall Street knows how to make money, they've poured literally billions of dollars into this. They're getting it ready to bring it into the mainstream, which goes totally against the whole purpose of a lot of these cryptocurrencies in the first place, which was to eliminate the middleman. But what they're doing through regulation and regulated exchanges and so on is they're middlemaning Bitcoin, Litecoin, and they intend to make a fortune off it. That's my view. I think that's what they're planning on doing. And that's why you got TD Ameritrade, Fidelity, Microsoft, Van Eck with their ETFs all coming. And there's this company, Paxos Stand. You probably never heard of them. They've got this stable coin that's got lots of volume. Coinbase has a stable coin. These are all bigger now. The US dollar coin, all bigger now than Tether, I believe, with trading volume. And they're regulated. They're not like, well, Tether supposedly is regulated, but these are, some of them are US-based. Gemini has one. And I was looking the other day at the Paxos board of directors. You never even heard of Paxos, but these are not people that are on the fringe of American finance or society. So Bill Bradley's on the board of Paxos. And Paxos isn't even like the big crypto company. It's just a stable coin. But Senator Bill Bradley, he is on the board of directors of this Paxos. Robert Hertz, not a famous name, but he's the chairman. He was previously the chairman of the Financial Accounting Standards Boards, or FASB. That's a big deal. And he's a senior partner at Price Waterhouse Cooper, which is PwC, one of the biggest accounting firms. Jim Manzi, he is a chairman of Stonegate Capital. He's the former chairman and president of Lotus Development Corporation. Duncan Newdyer here. He used to be the CEO of the New York Stock Exchange / Euronext. And he's the president of the Intercontinental Exchange. And he was formerly a partner at Goldman Sachs. All of these companies have board members like this. Big time people that are so into this stuff. And it's not getting pumped because, probably for two reasons. They don't want it pumped now. They're not ready to pump it. You have to do your research and see what's happening with this stuff. And the hardcore Bitcoin people, they don't want this to happen. They don't really. This is taking their invention, their anarcho-capitalist, free the world, eliminate the middleman. It's being removed. Now, they don't say much about it because they stand to benefit and get really rich if this happens. Because if you see institutional money coming in because it's okay to do it, because it's all regulated and it's safe to do, the prices will go exponentially higher. I'm not pumping it. I'm just seeing, that's just one company. I can go on. I've looked at the investments that Goldman Sachs has in Poloniex and all these different companies. It's actually staggering how many of these big companies have made investments in cryptocurrencies. They're just not talking about it very much. And Van Eck, every major ETF company is also trying to get an ETF off the ground. And the SEC is working with them. And I think they're just waiting to get the U.S. exchanges registered and regulated, and then I think it's off to the races. Microsoft and the New York Stock Exchange and Starbucks aren't investing in a company and launching a platform because they want it to be a flop. Fidelity's not doing that. TD Ameritrade's not doing that because they think it's over. They're doing that because they're preparing. In my mind, they're preparing for the biggest pump. Remember, we had the real estate bubble, the dot-com bubble, the everything bubble. What's the next bubble? It's a crypto bubble in my mind. I think that's where they're headed with it. And again, this isn't my endorsing that they do this. This is how I try to stay objective. Instead of all cryptos are going to zero, they are going to shut everyone down and arrest everyone. So therefore, you should just buy silver. Silver is the most... Okay. I get it. I would prefer the world to be run on sound money and physical, but that's not what's happening. All right. Brazil gets first crypto investment funding follows Securities Commission ruling. This is in Brazil, you know, where tropical Trump, Bolsonaro is. They have an SEC, Securities Exchange Commission there, and Brazil now has a crypto investment fund fully sanctioned by the SEC there. And this is happening all over the world. And it will attract capital. And this all could go bust too. But I'm just saying that they've invested a lot of time, effort, and money over the last few years trying to get this in. Hedge fund seeks ICO-like returns with equity-charged tokens. Money pouring into hedge funds. New hedge fund is betting on Bitcoin adoption and has the data to back it up. That's in Forbes this week. You can go to the website and all these links are there. I don't have time to go through all of them. But remember, last year, everyone was predicting cryptocurrencies to the moon. And today, near everybody is predicting cryptocurrencies to moon crater. It's all over now. No one knows where prices are headed. You can't listen to anybody. But I look at not what the prices are doing, but what people are doing. Where is money flowing? It's flowing into this stuff. But now here we go. Major Swiss stock exchange, SIX, lists world's first multi-crypto ETP, which is the same as an ETF. It's an exchange-traded product. Switzerland's stock exchange, this is SIX. It's going to list next week a crypto ETP. And guess what the the index symbol will be HODL, HODL. So HODL will track 5 major currencies: Bitcoin, Ripple, Ethereum, Bcash, and Litecoin. And half of it's going to be Bitcoin, and they're going to split it up, I think, 25% XRP, which is Ripple, 16% Ethereum, Bcash gets like 5%, and Litecoin gets like 3%. But again, that is something that was in the and it didn't get a lot of attention, but it's actually happening. It's going to be managed as an ETP. It'll be on the Swiss Stock Exchange. And what I'm going to be looking for, because I track this every quarter, is whether the Swiss National Bank buys this thing. So I won't know for about 3 to 6 months when they make their next reporting once this is listed. But I bet they buy it. The Swiss National Bank buys Tesla. They buy a lot of unicorn stocks. I would bet they buy this too. All right, we're getting a little long here, and I should have done this as a separate thing because this is a very important part of the week in review, is this Swiss ETP. Now, that stock exchange is the 4th largest stock exchange in Europe. That's 6. So Switzerland gives green light. This is Financial Times. Switzerland gives green light to first cryptocurrency ETP assets to include Bitcoin, Litecoin, Ethereum, Bcash, and Litecoin. All right. Now, also what's interesting is you're getting a lot of ATMs. There's now 4,000 Bitcoin, Litecoin ATMs. People just stuff cash in there and they get their... There's another nice chart. They get their cryptocurrency. There's another nice chart on Smaulgld. So you can't see it right now, but it shows what I was talking about. We've had these other past bubbles burst, and then the Bitcoin does nothing for like a year or two, and then it bursts again higher. This is either the end of it or it's going to do it again. But we'll have to see what happens. Now, we're also seeing cryptocurrency related entities buying actual banks. We saw Litecoin and another entity buy a German bank. Now there's a Bitcoin group that acquired another bank in Germany, and that gives them access to the SWIFT system. You see how this is all coming together? This isn't like they're going to crush it and send it off to die somewhere. They're trying to corral this in. I think that is what's happening. We will definitely know within 3 to 6 months, you know, if ETF gets approved, if BACT gets up and running, Fidelity, TD Ameritrade, and then we will know if there's any interest in this stuff. They could have done all this for naught. If that's the case, then this stuff is going to zero because there won't be any interest in it. But we don't really know yet. All right, here's one. Ron Paul. He gave a poll. Interesting poll. A wealthy person gives you $10,000. You get to choose in which form you will accept the gift. But there's a catch. You must keep the gift in the form that you choose for 10 years without touching it. In which form would you accept the gift? And his choices: Federal Reserve notes, gold, Bitcoin, and U.S. Treasury bonds. Nearly 100,000 people took part in the former congressman's poll, and 2% said they would take Federal Reserve notes. 11% said they would take U.S. 10-year Treasuries. 37% said they would take gold, and 50% said they would take Bitcoin. But it looks like gold and Bitcoin are going to end dollar hegemony. There we go. Yep, they're close to now 4,000 cryptocurrency ATMs. Got some noise here from Christine Lagarde talking about whether they should issue a cryptocurrency. But here's one that was really dumb. I read this. It was from the Bank of England, and they were mentioned 7 deadly paradoxes of cryptocurrencies. And it just shows I'm no expert in this stuff, but I'm not 8 months, 12 months, 3 years behind in the general basics. And they actually said one of the problems with Bitcoin is that each user has to maintain their own copy of the entire transaction history, basically the whole blockchain. So an n-fold increase in users and transactions means an n-fold squared fold increase in aggregate storage needs. You don't need to download the whole blockchain and keep a record of everything on the blockchain. That's the stupidest thing I ever heard of. Now, I mean, it's stupid if you know anything about Bitcoin. It's not the stupidest thing I ever heard of. That's like Trump saying that the Mueller investigation is the biggest witch hunt in history. It's not. One of the biggest witch hunts was in Salem, at least in America. And he also was mentioning that how much it costs to send a Bitcoin. Yeah, like a year ago it cost a lot. It doesn't cost that now. He was talking about scaling capabilities. He's not up on the Lightning Network. I mean, it's just, they just put this stuff out there, and it's the 7 deadly paradoxes, and it's what the Bank of England says, official position. But here's something. In crackdown of crypto, SEC goes after unregistered coin offerings. I point you again to sec.gov/ICO. They're not against ICOs. They're against unregistered ICOs. They want people to bring their ICOs to them, register them, and guess who comes with them? Lawyers, accountants, Wall Street bankers, Silicon Valley. They want to register ICOs. That's what they're working for. They're not working to shut it down. And last week we saw this, and I can't show you. This is the silver bullet, silver shield. Picture of a stack of silver coins with a bullet impression on them. A guy was saved. Actually, he was shot at because his silver coins gave him away. But he got shot at, and the assailant hit the coins and saved his life. So that's an example of a bullet in the silver shield. And we had our Bitcoin pumping. Here's one here. Calm before the storm. Bitcoin bull run expected in the next month. Fundstrat. This guy, Tom Lee. This just came out. Fundstrat's Tom Lee predicts Bitcoin recovery, but lowers his end of year target to 15,000 from 20,000, from 25,000. Now he's only got 6 weeks. He's expecting it to go to 15,000. Unless he knows something about an ETF being approved or backed going live and being a hit. It'd be hard to see why it would rise that dramatically, but that's what it did last year. And McAfee is still standing by his $1 million Bitcoin price by 2020, just 743 days to go before he may have to eat a portion of his anatomy. Oh, then we had the gold pumping. There's 382 paper gold ounces. You know, the whole game over COMEX default. I'm not going to get into that tonight, but I've done a lot of work on that. Anyone's interested, email me. I'll send you all the work while that COMEX default story is complete and utter rubbish. Owners per ounce. Well, I finally got blocked here by Andrew McGuire. I don't know what he was saying, but I wrote, alert, alert, double, triple alert, ABX game changer ready to shock the world and send gold skyrocketing. Well, he didn't like that, and he gave me the old block. I think we're going to close. Yep, that's about it. Well, I want to thank everybody for anyone who did stay with me from start to finish. Many of you joined midstream, mid-live stream. Many will be listening to this later. I also put a poll up whether you prefer the long ones. I know I've heard so many people tell me they like the long ones. They go for a run. They commute. They can listen to it. They don't have to keep changing videos. That is if you like my content. If you don't, you change it right away. But then other people have written to me and they said, look, I would listen to everything you do if you had the 15-minute videos. And it's like, I do this part-time. It's not my job. I don't have time to even edit this down to a 15-minute video. But I'd like to know what you think. There's a poll question up whether you like the longer ones or the shorter ones. At some point, if I were able to spend more time on this, I would do the 5-10 minute quick updates, very concise with the charts and everything. But since I know a lot of people like the long ones, and not that it's easier, it's just that if people want more, I'm going to give them more. And if people want less, well, I'll probably rather give people who want more. All right, well, thank you very much for listening, and don't forget to order your Smaulgld mugs, and go check out smaulgld.com and hit the like button, subscribe, do all the things you're supposed to do if you like this stuff. Thank you very much, everyone, and we'll see you tomorrow.